Podcasting 101 with me, your host, Rachel. This podcast is for female business owners and solopreneurs that are looking to start a podcast that adds to your own already awesome offering. I'll give you helpful advice that you can take away and use in your podcasting journey. I hope to answer those tricky questions that just keep you from starting. Once a month, I'll be joined by other female podcasters. They'll share their journey with you and offer tips and advice they discovered along the way. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode. Today, I have with me Cydelle Stewart. Welcome, Cydelle.
Hi, thanks for having me, Rachel.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on. Cydelle is an online business operations expert, a virtual assistant mentor, and the founder of the VA agency Onyx Communications. And her podcast is called Virtual Duality. It's great to have you here today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your podcast?
Yeah, no problem. So like you said, my name is Cydelle Stewart, otherwise known as Cyd. And I've been in the virtual online space now for just coming up to 13 years. And we started the podcast Virtual Duality, which is aimed at aspiring and emerging virtual assistants can I remember the date? I don't remember the date off the top of my head, to be honest, in terms of when we launched it. But we're on season 3. We just finished season 3. We're on a break at the moment. And the purpose of the podcast is to empower people who are interested in being virtual assistants or are new in their journey, like within the first 18 months, 2 years of their journey, who were really clued up on the service delivery in terms of what they do for clients, but not so much necessarily on running a business. And so that's where the virtual duality comes in. It's like you're dually running this business as well as servicing your clients. And I think that often VAs focus so heavily on client delivery and service that they don't really take into consideration the aspect of building their business and running it at the same time, and it gets lost. And it becomes really stressful because all of their focus is on getting clients and maintaining clients. So that was the impetus for launching it, really.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Me starting out as a virtual assistant March 21, and there was a lot of focus on initially thinking about all of, like, say, getting the clients. But actually, when you're trying to, I ended up doing a copywriting course, and that looked a little bit about setting up your business as well. And actually, there was a lot of things that you don't consider because if you're not a business owner before. So that is great to have something out there that's going to help guide you. So what did you do in the planning stages? So how did you why did you decide to target VAs and that aspect of setting up?
At that point, I had decided that I was going to launch a VA training and development arm of my business. And so the natural thing felt like, how do I do that pretty immediately without spending lots of time overly perfecting and stressing about what I'm putting out? And a podcast felt like the most natural way to do that, as opposed to writing content. So I've always loved audio. I've done a lot of radio in the past. So a podcast just felt comfortable, to be honest. It was the idea of doing solo episodes was a little bit daunting, because we were trying to consider, do we do solo episodes, just guest episodes? And then in the end, we decided to do a hybrid of both. And the solo episodes, the first few, like when you listen back to them, they're a little bit cringe because I was just like, what do I talk about? Don't want to sound like I'm reading, so I didn't want to write it all out. Do I have enough to say? Is what I'm saying valuable? There was all those kind of considerations. So the planning was around, what do the audience that I'm targeting need? What are their challenges? And because I'm in so many virtual assistant and executive assistant and personal assistant forums, that part of the research was quite easy. I could tap into what people were struggling with, what kind of questions people had about being a VA, and then turn that into episodes that I could answer those questions essentially, and then bring on experts onto the guest episodes to answer more business related questions, but geared towards virtual assistants.
Yeah. So you're kind of you were on the ground, listening to what VAs were saying they wanted and they needed, and then you could turn that around to give them that in their podcast.
Yeah.
What was your planning process? So how long did it take you to get from when you decided to, right, I'm going to do a podcast? What kind of things did you do? Did you do it by yourself? Did you have a team to help you? What kind of things did you do?
I kind of did the planning myself in terms of the ideas. And then I worked with Gemma, my online business manager, to help me kind of map out the process. We were looking at how do we physically produce this podcast? Like, what does the editing look like? And I did some research. When I first had the idea, I did some research online in some groups, asking people to share what was included in their editing packages, what they charge, how long it takes to turn it around, etc. And I got some really good quotes. And then I kind of earmarked somebody that I was going to reach back out to. And I did this like 4 months in advance. So I had an understanding of what it was going to cost to produce it, how many episodes we could do at a time, because we were going to batch them rather than doing them week by week, and what it would look like internally for Gemma to help make the podcast actually happen alongside the editor. And we planned it down to, I think we got down to 37 steps that it takes for each podcast, from initial invitation of asking somebody if they're happy to be on the pod, to the final email where we thank them and share their assets with them for their episode, and then one more follow-up email. So it was a lot of steps, but we've automated a lot of it. And so we managed to get the process down to a T, really.
Well, that is super organized. And I guess if you're having a lot of guests as well, it's helped refine that process along the way as well. What do you use to automate it? Is that of interest?
Oh. So we use...
is it Airtable?
No. Well, actually, that's not true. We do use Airtable. We use Airtable for our planning, to map out our dates, the topics, and all of that kind of side of it. So we map that out episode per episode in Airtable, because Airtable is my baby and I use it for everything, as I'm sure you would have guessed from listening to my episodes. But we use Dubsado for our automation with a few external steps, because we use external scheduler. So I use Acuity scheduling for booking the actual podcast recording session. We use Squadcast for our actual platform to do our recording. We use, well, that's later. And then we use Dubsado to kind of string it all together. We use Zapier in the background for any of the parts that aren't like intuitively automated. And there are a couple of manual steps in between, but for the most part, especially the early part of the production, the pre-production, that is automated. And we actually have recreated that process now as an actual digital products that we can sell to other people if they were interested in not having to figure it all out for themselves.
Oh, that's interesting. That's something that I hadn't really thought about, but I don't use, I know some people that use Dubsado, but I haven't used it myself. But, from what I can gather, it's really powerful and really great for having that type of process, having everything automated along the way. So that saves you a lot of time, and that helps a lot with your planning there.
Yeah, it really does help. And especially because we do a broadcast release form, which I know lots of people don't do, but I am, formerly a VA and formerly an executive assistant. Like the legalities of things are a big part of what I do. So I don't ever skip that portion. So we do a broadcast release form, which is easy for us to do using Dubsado, as well as the person saying, yeah, they're up for it, sharing all the information and the links to anything else that they need, all in a really easy automated step without us having to manually do that each time.
That's really helpful. With the tech side of things then, did you have somebody in to help edit the episodes once you'd recorded them, or did you do that? Did you manage that within your own team?
No, so one of the people that I found when I was doing the research a few months prior, I contacted him, and then he was basically our editor. So he would take 4 weeks worth of episodes at a time and edit those and then send them back to us. And then Gemma would do all of the work that goes into creating the audiograms versions, for example, and the artwork and the show notes, and then scheduling it, loading it up to Podbean, which is the platform that we use to host it, and then liaising with the guests again to send them their assets and stuff. So there are quite a few different, like between us, we've mentioned a lot of tools, right? So some people would be a bit daunted by that. And I mean, you don't have to use lots of tools. You could literally just do your editing and then do everything by, regular email and Word documents or Google Docs. But this is just much simpler, as much as it doesn't sound it. Once you've got the process kind of in place, then it works for itself.
Yeah, I tend to do my emails myself. I do have a scheduler. I use Captivate. They have like an episode planning thing in there. But they do have like a booking schedule inside the platform, so you can send a booking link out, which is what you booked through, and you can add social links and things like that for your guests if they want to. You use Podbean as your platform. What was your decision? Why did you decide to use Podbean over? I mean, there are many other platforms out there and there's no wrong platform, but I have done a solo episode about like choosing your publishing platform. So I'm interested to know what your feelings are about Podbean.
To be honest, we looked at Lisbon, I think it's called, first, because that's the one that I'm a real geek. I mean, formerly a tech VA, I noticed the tools that people use for everything in ways that most people don't even notice. It's like, well, you got an email, and I'm like, yeah, but how did you get the email? Where did it come from? Who sent it? Like, what tool was used? What's that code in the corner? So I'm really curious like that. So I had been scoping out what other people use for their podcasts, and there are some people that I follow online who have really slick production. And so I was looking, and I realized that Lisbon was quite popular with really big, well-established online business owners. So I had looked at that, but then I was deterred by a cost, if I remember correctly. And I thought, we're just starting. We can always move to a, more established, more pricey platform later on. So I think Gemma did some research into like lower end in terms of cost platforms, and we just picked Podbean for its ease of functionality, really. When we relaunch the podcast, we probably will move, because it is a little bit clunky, and the aesthetic of it is not great. But we generally don't send people directly to there. We host it on our own website. Each episode is listed and loaded up individually, so we kind of direct people to go there to listen to it. But obviously, there are the other platforms like Apple and Spotify, for example, where people would tune in. So Podbean doesn't feature too much in terms of the actual display page that people see.
Yeah, I think I listened to your episode, the Hayley's one, which is Hayley Hudson's episode, which is where I first came across you. And one thing I did like about Podbean is that you could comment and like on each individual episode. Yeah, and know that not an Apple podcast, you can leave the review down the bottom, but like in Google in the app, you can't do that. And I quite liked that feature on it, but I do see what you mean about the way that it looks is not as pretty or as,
it's not sexy. It's not.
No.
So we have it on our own site, and you can comment per episode. And
that's a nice feature,
it or whatever, but it means it keeps it on brand as well. So that was kind of the impetus for that.
Also, I think having all your reviews in one place as well makes it easier like you say, people do use the different apps, but having that kind of, if someone's directed right to your website and they can see the comments that people have made on your podcast there, I think that's a really valuable way for people to see the impact that it's having with listeners. I mean, that's quite a challenging thing. I know I find this myself with getting your listeners to engage and leave reviews. How do you find that side of things?
I was just about to ask you that, because we've really struggled with that. We get the listens and people download it. I get a lot of private messages, people telling me how great the episode was or it resonated for them in some way. And I get a lot of messages from people saying, oh, it's so nice to see a Black woman doing a podcast in this particular space, because it's quite uncommon. So all of those comments are amazing, but they're all private messages. I don't get them publicly. They're not left on the podcast. So that's something that we haven't quite mastered, is getting public reviews. So I'll be looking to you for those tips.
Well, I have some, I've got to say, it's something that I struggle with as well. And one of the reasons why I chose Captivate, I mean, it's a paid platform, but they are kind of like a growth specialist platform. Right. And they do offer some like subscriber like webinars and things like that. So I really want to start looking at the growth side of things, about how to increase your engagement with your listeners and try and get that, because it's nice to know, you know, when you're putting stuff out there, that like who's listening and how are they taking it, and it's lovely to get it publicly as well, so then other people can see it and then say, oh, why, actually this is going to be for me. So I think I have a few ideas, but I'm not an expert in either, unfortunately. I wish I was. I wish I had, hundreds of thousands of listens. That would be amazing. But I mean, it's kind of like your social media, isn't it? Kind of like not getting too caught up in too big a download numbers, because if you've got like a core group of listeners that are listening, and if you can get them to engage, they will be like your most valuable,
your ambassadors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how do you find Squadcast for you? Is it a free platform, or do you have to pay for Squadcast?
No, it's a paid platform.
Yeah.
I think they may have a premium tier.
I briefly kind of come across Squadcast.
It's really good. It's been extremely reliable. I've had technical issues twice in all of the episodes that we've done, and those have mostly been broadband issues or Wi-Fi issues from my guests rather than the platform itself. And it's really easy to use. You can have up to 4 people per episode. They have the option to do video as well as audio. We just do our podcasts. We use video to record them, but the video is not saved, so it's just audio. Yeah. But there is an option at a higher price point where you can do video as well. So if you want to put your pods on YouTube, for example, it makes it really easy to do that. And it's just quite straightforward to use. There's just no issues. It looks great on split screen. It's just a split screen kind of visual identity, and it works great. And they're quite receptive in terms of their customer service. If you ever need advice or guidance with something, they get back to you pretty quickly.
Oh, that's good. I must say, I've only used Zoom, mainly because I didn't want to, initially when I was starting, I didn't want to pay for a platform, and I felt that Zoom was going to work okay for me. But I have since looked into, a friend of mine uses Zencaster for their podcast. I
looked at that.
I tried it. I used the free version. And so you could have the video, but it didn't record it. It just recorded the audio. And you have, the person who you're interviewing as well has to have the space on their laptop. So it can save like, just a file while you're recording. So she didn't have enough space. That she's got a Chromebook, didn't have enough space, so I couldn't get it to work. It was only afterwards I discovered that it was the space issue. Right. So that was kind of a bit of a barrier for me, because I felt like
it's a bit intrusive. To expect to have a requirement that your guest has a certain amount of storage space on the machine, on the device, is a bit restrictive.
Yeah, so that kind of was a bit like, oh, that was a bit disappointing. But I know somebody that's used riverside.fm and have been very happy with that. So that is using a different platform other than Zoom is something that I'm considering. But when I record solo episodes, I record straight into Audacity. So I find that is like a good quality to record straight into for myself. But obviously that's not possible to use when you've got guests, because then you're only you can't, well, you could record at the same time, but I don't think it'd be too complicated to expect your guests to like work out all that tech side of things as well. It is a bit complicated. I've too many layers.
I know that Gemma uses Audacity because we brought our editing in-house after maybe the first 6 months. And Gemma does the editing of the pod now, and she uses Audacity. I've got no clue how it works. But I can't imagine being able to use that with guests. I know that it's kind of, the channels are separate, right? So there's a lot. Yeah,
that's you'd have to get them to record on their own computer and send it to you, which doesn't seem like it's just a lot of effort for your guests then, really, isn't it? It's just so. So you are pretty confident around the tech relating to the process side of things, and you've brought your editing in-house now. I use Audacity to edit as well, and I do love, I don't know all of the features on it, but I do really think I really like Audacity. My husband's a sound engineer as well, and he's been able to teach me loads of stuff, which has been such a bonus. Yeah, it's super helpful actually. So my actual little Wikipedia guide on my shoulder there. What kind of things do you do to market or promote your podcasts?
So we have a dedicated mailing list, which is like a VA audience specific. We share on socials. So we have a social account for that brand. Then I also share on my own socials on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And then we do, when we're running it, weekly, we share an email once a week, just letting our audience know like whose episode it is or what we're talking about this week. And that's worked quite well for us. In terms of the return on investment, in terms of how many people are listening versus how many people we're reaching with advertising, that's still being figured out. We're still kind of finding our feet, but people are quite receptive but they don't necessarily listen on the day that it comes out. I've noticed it tends to get better traction in the 3 days after it's been published than it does on the day it's been published.
Well, that's interesting. I think I get over the week, I think I might get 1 or 2 listens that day. I mean, I think I've got like about 8 unique listeners that are on my dashboard on Captivate at the moment. So I think like a few do within the day, and then like the next are within that week, kind of before the next episodes. But I've noticed on a lot of just looking at different statistics on some different podcasts that I've managed, like the episodes have tended to like peak and then they kind of go down a little bit and then they peak up again. But I think that it's the podcast stats and everything are interesting and how they relate to marketing. But I think that sometimes if you feel podcasting is quite a long game, is a long game. And I think that it's hard to quantify it sometimes into how beneficial, because you could have like say like a really small but they're super engaged with your content, and it's not getting too disheartened. I think to begin with is an important thing to kind of to say to people out there that are starting a podcast. Don't be worried if you don't get like 1,000 downloads in your first month or anything like that. So
definitely, I think it's worth finding a way to track stuff. So using Google Analytics where you can, and then having a spreadsheet set up to track your listens or your downloads at some point. But I think I would suggest that people just don't look at their stats for the first 3 months. Like, just focus on the content and what you're saying and sharing, and focus on the engagement that you're getting or not getting, and try and work on building that rather than focusing on the stats. Because like you said, the stats are going to take a while to build up. And if you're focused on them, it's going to feel really disheartening and you'll feel like, why am I bothering? And it will start to eat away at your enthusiasm for it, when really, you really just need to put your gusto behind getting it out there and not worrying about how many people are or aren't listening to it straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making sure that your content is that you go back to who are you doing your podcast for and what do they need, and making sure that your content or your podcast fits that bill. Then you know that you are putting out there what people want to listen, which is the most important part of doing your podcast, obviously. How do you feel? Has it helped you as a business? Do you feel that have you enjoyed adding podcasting to your selection, like for your marketing and everything?
Yeah, I felt like it is, like you said, it's a long game, and I was very clear that would be the situation from the beginning, because I think if you thought you're going to do a podcast and excuse me, for like a couple of months and it's going to have a major impact, then you're going to be in for a rude awakening. It is a long game. It is also a combination of doing your podcast but also appearing on other people's podcasts is a great marketing mix. Just doing your own in isolation, I think, is powerful, but not as powerful as also being on other people's podcasts. And really using it in a way that you're getting your voice out there, you're showing your expertise, but you're also inviting other people to do the same. It's a really rewarding feeling having other people come on, share their expertise and their insights that potentially then go on to help other people, and you're facilitating that process. So that feels great. And from a marketing perspective, it's just helping to raise your visibility. Like it's never going to do you any harm having yourself out there, unless you really don't know what you're doing, and in which case then don't do a podcast. Don't set yourself up. but also just focus on the fact that what you take for granted in terms of your expertise, other people are dying to hear. And sometimes we can convince ourselves we don't have anything valuable to share. Why is anybody going to be interested in that? Or doesn't everybody know that? No, they really don't. And if it's not their area of expertise, they probably definitely don't. And you sharing that is going to open somebody else's eyes, or, you know, lead them to find out something that they didn't already know that could potentially benefit them. And just do that with gusto and with some pride.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. Is that your kind of top tip for somebody who's starting out podcasting?
Yeah, just go for it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? But give yourself a timeline and say, okay, I'm going to do this for 3 months. Anything you're going to do it for at least 12 weeks, because you need to give yourself the opportunity to get into a groove with it. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I'll do 3 episodes, or I'll do a month, and then I'll see how I feel. And it's like, you've got to give yourself a chance for success. So do 3 months and then see where you're at. Take a break and then come back to it.
Yeah. I planned out 12 months of this podcast to say I decided I was going to do it for a year. So I planned out, I've not like in detail planned out every single episode yet. So I kind of do mine on a 4-weekly basis. But I think that having whatever that plan is, whether it's a season or whether, you have that, it's important to have that planned out, because otherwise you will lose enthusiasm. You'll find, and if you might find an excuse not to do it. And I think you've got to be consistent, however that is for your audience, whether it's weekly or monthly or however it is you want to show up. And we all know that from our marketing as well, don't we? From everything, trying to be consistent. Keyword consistency. Yeah. But I think with podcasts as well, it's the same thing. And the planning element is not something, although you kind of sometimes want to skip ahead and dive into the exciting part of the podcast, but you need to think about that you're reaching your ideal client and your content is going to do that for those people.
Yeah, definitely. And also the top end of that's the output, but the client experience that people have when they're going to be a guest on your podcast is majorly important, and a lot of people overlook that side of it. I say that as somebody who focuses on client experience as my role in my day job, so outside of podcasting. So it's easy for me to focus on that element, but it's been really rewarding to have people comment and remark at how easy or how slick the process was for them being a guest. And when somebody has an experience that feels delightful prior to recording with you, they come with a particular type of energy. And so your podcast is naturally just going to be a really great conversation too, because they realize that, this is top shelf, like top shelf, maybe not the best expression, but it's high end, they're feeling like it's been a great experience. It's going to be a great conversation. And then they're going to be proud to share the end output as well with their audience, which is obviously what you want when you do a recording, right? You want people to share it with their own network.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is important. If you've not sent a link or not all those little things, they do matter to people, don't they? And they turn up and then it's not a great experience. They're not going to think back on it with fondest of memories, are they?
Yeah, that's right. And so by the time it goes live, which is often, a month or longer after you've recorded, they've forgotten about it, and then they're not phased, and you send them the assets and then they might not share it, and then that can feel disheartening.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed chatting to you today, Cyd. I've really felt you've given our audience, however small they may be, real insights into the way that you do your podcast. And do you want to just let people know where we can find you and where we can listen to I know you mentioned your podcast is housed on your website. If anyone would like to work with you or get in touch, where's the best way to do that?
Okay, so the podcast Virtual Duality is available on all major podcast platforms, and it's also on our website, which is from pa2va.com/podcast, and you can find all of the episodes there from the 3 seasons that we've done. Like I say, the first 2 seasons are focused on business professionals across the board in all different industries, teaching virtual assistants how to level up, for want of a better way to put it. And the last season is a combination of VA diaries, so hearing from people who are VAs who transitioned from business support roles in employment to running their own businesses. And it's also a series of people who book VAs who found joy in having a VA in their business and what that journey has looked like, what kind of things they were looking for. So that's been a really interesting season. In terms of finding me, I'm on all socials. I say all socials. I use Instagram predominantly, so you can find me at Cydelle Stewart, and also on Facebook. And if you're looking for a VA, or you're interested in that side of the world, or you're interested in becoming an associate VA, then it's Onyx Communications.
Brilliant. I will link all those in the show notes so people can have easy access to all your details. Thanks again for coming on, Cyd.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like, share and subscribe. Your support means so much to me. If there's a question or topic you'd like covering, then I'd love to hear from you. Find the podcast on Instagram at RachelBotfield and drop me a DM. Till next time, bye.